really smaller on the portions, especially with the younger kids, especially to trying things. So one thing that's really kind of fun, we did a muffin game. So you just take a muffin pan and you put little foods to try in it. And then also foods that are like familiar, just like something super simple like raisins or whatever. And then we actually can blindfold them and have like the taboo buzzer and stuff, you know, ready to go. And so we'd have it with their sibling, and they would take a taste and try to figure out what it was. And they would know that there would be maybe a try food or two in the mix. Because it was like a game and it was fun and we were trying new textures, they were really kind of open to that. Now, that's a trust thing. The kids have to be at a point that they feel comfortable enough. And maybe they even get to see that as you're prepping it, these are all foods they're comfortable with. Maybe play with foods that they know first, and then you start adding in try foods. So the muffin game is really fun. Another one that I like is if you take, and this is more for toddlers, but if you take like a pill box and you put like just like 1 or 2 nuts and just 1 or 2 blueberries and just, you know, and it's like a tiny bento box. And so when you're out, instead of grabbing goldfish, they have this like exposure opportunity that also helps them to like, it's fun, it's something that's more engaging, and maybe it has like a gummy in it or something, you know, something that's even more interesting to them at the time. Popsicle smoothies are really fun, or using an ice cube tray to kind of put things in. If you make a smoothie we also really engage the kids around smoothie making, so like throwing in things like spinach and like what recipe are you gonna make, and they have to pick like 1 fruit, 1 vegetable, 1, you know, whatever. And they've come up with some crazy concoctions, really, but they'll drink it because they made it. And even just like cutouts. So like taking a little, and look, I'm a wannabe Pinterest mom, but I'm like a Pinterest fail mom. Like I try and it just looks like a hot mess when I'm done with that bento box, but I give it my best shot. So there are people, and probably in this room, that will do this beautifully, but there are these adorable little like veggie cutouts and stuff that you can make. The cool part about it is it does make it more visually engaging. The strategy is also that you should try not to eat all the leftover cutouts. If you make a heart, don't then have all those scraps afterwards, unless they're like things that are really going to help your meet your goals. But those are helpful too, in just visually engaging, because if something looks like a big pile of casserole in a dish, that's a little overwhelming sometimes, right? And if they're not familiar with it, as they get familiar with it, it's not a big deal. And it's really hard when our lives are so busy, and you work your tail off and you make this amazing meal, and you don't want to eat it. And so it's just thinking of some strategies, not only for them, but for you, because, you know, how do you do that in a way that then still feels like that was really worth my time? So these are just a couple of things that I found really helpful. And in addition, I put on the resources. So some of you may know Anna Shoemaker. She actually is out and about in a lot of our community. She actually does freezer meals, which I love too, and you get together with her and prep like 10 meals at one time, and she does all the prep for you, and you just pop it in like a freezer bag and put it in your freezer, and then in the morning you can dump it in the crock pot, and by the nighttime it's done. So I've done that as gifts for like moms that are having babies, or for my own sanity. But thinking about ways of meal prepping ahead of time, you have a day that's maybe a little slower at home, which is not easy with the little guys, but a lot of things that were helpful to me were like making a pot of soup, or I love to roast veggies, like that's my favorite kind of vegetable, so I would do like 5 pans at one time, just throw them all in. And then I would throw eggs on them one morning, and I would throw them in a salad the next day, and I would throw them, because my biggest thing was I like them. I don't mind vegetables, but I like them a certain way, and they need to be kind of interesting. So after a while, if they just get boring and it's another like bag of salad, and there's that pizza sitting there that my kid didn't finish, like I'm going for the pizza. So like I had to keep things somewhat interesting for myself so that it was more engaging. I'd also also recommend for both your kids and for you things that are like interesting dips, like using Greek yogurt as a base, or even like sour cream or something, but putting in more savory things, or artichoke dip, things like that, where then you can use that with a lot of veggies, because again, like, they can get boring if you're just eating carrot sticks. No, I love a carrot stick, but like after a while, it's like, it's not that exciting. So it's thinking about ways of engaging them, but also you, that make a lot of sense. There's actually when I talked about the muffin game, there's actually on the resources, Amazon has this Fred and Friends dinner winner. So if you have a really picky child and you want to make a game out of it, it actually has little, it looks like Candyland almost, and it has little spots. You can actually put little different kinds of foods in it, and as they work through the food all the way to the prize at the end, they can win, their dinner kind of idea. And it's a good way of sometimes trying these little new things and even doing it as like a snack challenge or a game. And then there's even like this plate called On the 8 that you spin, and whatever pie, it's like little pie, 8 pies, you spin it, and whatever comes up, you put foods in it, that's the one that they try. And so it's a game and it's fun. Or even like bulldozer utensils. Have you guys seen those where they look like, there's all the planes and trains and things, but there's also ones that can kind of push food around. And when you're thinking about exposure, sometimes it's just getting them to touch the food and become familiar with it. So like, don't get carried away. Like, you don't have to have a whole mountain of mashed potatoes, but then that feels like, wow, that was really wasteful. But like, it can be like a little bit that just, again, is the point of exposure. So there's a lot of resources out there that can help them connect with food in a healthier way. I also worked for a really long time with eating disorders, and one of the big issues that I think is really important to talk about is how we not only talk about food, but how we talk about our bodies. And look, we are going through a journey in our own bodies. There's a lot of stuff that we're working through from having a child, and then our bodies change and they're different, and it's not always easy to kind of like fight your way back to what feels normal to you. But I would just also encourage you to be kind to yourself in that journey, to really appreciate what your body's already done for you and what it is doing, and to communicate that too to the kids, because one of the biggest things I'm a huge advocate of is no diet talk, because first of all, diets are not helpful, like, ever. It's the best way to gain back weight, is like to do that. On the other hand, choosing healthy foods that nourish our body in a way that actually helps us meet our wellness goals is meaningful. And so when we reframe our thinking and the way we view our bodies, it also is very empowering to our kids and how we're talking, because you can be at a holiday and you'll hear 500 women sitting around talking about, I wish I would, and versus like, yes, like yesterday I totally stretched and touched my toes, which I haven't done in quite some time, Like, what is it that we're accomplishing? What is our body doing for us? And then giving them that same empowerment to say, like, what are you accomplishing because of the food that you're eating and that it's nourishing you? And hey, if that's not working for you anymore, that food is not leading you to something that's helpful, then yeah, let's think about something different. So, I mentioned at the beginning that I work with metabolic health, and so one of the biggest issues, and I see it all the time, is how foods can spike our insulin, and that becomes really difficult because when your insulin is high, your body actually can't break down fat because lipase is then suspended, right? So when insulin spikes up, it can't break down. And one of the things that I read the other day, it said, sleep deprivation, this is going to be sad for you, I'm sorry. A sleep deprivation of even one night can actually make us more insulin resistant. I was like, how about a decade? Like, sleep deprivation. So as moms, it becomes challenging because you actually have to be pretty mindful about some of the things and choices that you're making that are going to help you to really strengthen and help your body. But on the other side, we want to make sure that we're communicating that to ourselves and to our children in a way that is really going to be empowering and not in a way that makes them feel about any of those things. So that's so much information. But I would love to hear just some of your questions and yes.
So the idea of listening to your body of when you're full and being okay stopping. So when you have a 3-year-old who ate one bite of dinner and said, I'm full, and you know he's going to, lay down in bed and immediately be hungry, like how do you balance, like, yes, I'm going to listen to you tell me when you're full, but I'm not going to be unreasonable about it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think some of this becomes better, like, again, it's sort of like when you think about independence around tying your shoes or brushing your teeth or whatever, like, hunger cues are kind of similar to that. So, like, a 3-year-old that is saying that, and they're not, and, like, clearly they aren't, and this process is going to happen. I think it's good to say, hey, remember last night, and you were really, really hungry, and so I think we're going to go ahead and try to give, take another few bites, because you have whatever coming up. And sometimes it's just being the mom and being like, I think you got to keep going, buddy. Because I mean, it's a really imperfect journey, but I don't make a huge battle zone about it. But I also they don't rule the dinner table. Like, and I'm not the let me make 52 meals mom. Like, I respect all people's perspectives on that, but it's just not my thing. Like, I just don't have the capacity. So for me, it's like, this is what we have. This is the option. The other issue is like they might not like it.
For my son, it's not even that he doesn't like what's on it. He just doesn't. He'd rather be doing other things, I guess, and he just. I don't know, but like, do you ever just let him go to bed hungry and be hungry, or do you get him out of bed and give him like his dinner back?
No, this is the gray area, right? So like, like we've done it all. I would say, so if it's keying into why, right? So if the why is like he'd rather be doing other things, which is also my career, he was doing that. Yeah. The fun plates, fun utensils, adventure around food, like making that fun and exciting playtime in some way. Not so like the extreme that they can't eat because they're playing so much with it, but like that's a whole other extreme. But it becomes engaging in that way, and it's not just like a white plate that's like boring. That was really helpful. And then we also did have rules too of like, all right, but this is also our time with our family. So we're going to spend time. We do this thing in our house. It's called a rose, blood, and thorn. And we'll ask our kids every night that, like, what's your rose, blood, and thorn? So your rose is something that you loved for the day. Your bud is something you're looking forward to. And your thorn is like, what was that thing that was like really rough on you today? And everyone goes around, including mom and dad, and gives it. And so we'll say even to the toddler, like, hey, not everybody got to share their rose, blood, and thorn, and you're getting up. Like, that's not okay. Don't you want to hear what JR has to say? And he'll chill. Not always. Sometimes he's literally rolling under the table. Like, we get there. Other questions?
I do have a question, but I was trying to comment. Because I think what happens, I have put my son to bed hungry, just because he didn't want to eat. And I struggle with feeling a little bit guilty about it, but I think it's also like a journey of natural consequences. Like, so once you start to learn, if I don't eat, I'm going to be hungrier than normal. I think that has been helpful, where it kind of takes you being the like demanding mom or whatever. Maybe it's 2 times. I mean, obviously, if he's doing it for his life, that's a problem too. But it was helpful for me to do it, even, and I did feel like a bad mom because you hear like, don't put but it's kind of resolving itself a little bit, because then he was like, wait a minute, but I'm hungry. I'm like, I know. And we went there. We had it because he was like, but I'm hungry. And I'm like, I know, but when you were supposed to eat, you didn't. And again, I walked away feeling somewhat horrible. But next time,
he figured it out.
He thought about it.
And then the next morning you get up early and make a
Yes.
big breakfast.
Yes. Exactly.
Like a guilt breakfast.
I hold boundaries. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true in a lot of ways. It's also knowing your kids, right? So, like, some kids are literally on the low end on the growth scale, and then that's even scarier because then you're like, you really need every little bite. Like, how can I do that? So it's hard to hold boundaries that feel like are helping them to make good choices at the same time that we're nourishing them. So, yeah, I mean, it's a moving scale. I don't think there's any right, like, no, absolutely never, you should never do that kind of stuff. Like, everybody's kids, sorry. Like, that's why parenting is just hard. But we've all been there, right? And so I think it's following your gut. And also, like, you know, these are things that I really do pray about, and these are things I really do, like, process through, because there are times that, like, whether it's school or food or body or, like, my kids get challenged by stuff, just like we do. And so, you know, it's another area that sometimes I'll just bring back and say, like, this is complicated. How do I do it? And sometimes that's when I'll be like, oh, I should try that. You know, and then other resources that are just great ideas that help you, like, think a little differently so that you can kind of try it. Like, at this point, most of these, my kids know all my tricks. Like, if I go, you guys are like, these are good. But, like, my kids are like, yeah, we know. Okay. Special hero powers. Yeah, we know. But they do it now. Like, it's just like habits. So I have to keep coming up with new ones. But, yeah.
So my question was, like, so if you are, I am guilty of, like, doing really well and then falling off track, and then doing really well and what would you recommend, just like when you're back into the, like, getting back on track phase? What do you think, like, the two, one, it could even be one thing to, like, focus on, so it doesn't feel like I'm trying this, that, you know, that would work for both yourself and the kids?
Yeah. So one thing that you mentioned there is something that I am very much guilty of, but it is actually a thought that, you know, we think about taking every thought captive, right? So, like, it is a thought that can actually be really, really dangerous, is this idea of all or nothing thinking, right? And we all do it, right? So it's like, I'm doing this thing, like, starting Monday, starting January, whatever. I'm doing this thing, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm going to, like, kill it. And I'm going to work out, and I don't care. I know I haven't slept for days, but, like, I'm still getting in the gym, like, and then we go to the other side of, like, oh my God, I just can't do it. And then it becomes enough, like, I am off of it. And so then we'll forget it. Like, you know what, there's donuts, and I'm not following this thing anyway, so whatever. So we get in, right? And, like, we've all done it. So it's recognizing when that thought comes and go, reject that. Like, first of all, because that will sabotage you every single time. Because that perfect thinking, it doesn't exist. It definitely doesn't exist as a mom. So, like, when you think, like, you've got it down, someone's going to be a saboteur of your plan, and somehow it's not going to work. So it is coming back to that, this will happen, but imperfectly. I will get progress, not perfection. Like, that's my mantra. I'm like, progress, not perfection. Like, even with my kids. So around food, it's always about progress, not perfection. And so how do you start to progress towards something, which is exactly what you're really saying. How do I progress towards something without getting so perfect about it that, like, I'm setting myself up to fail? So one of the areas that I work really hard at, and it's really tough as a mom, but I mentioned, like, food prep, things like that for this, is half of my plate from vegetables. Every meal. Not always for breakfast, but I will throw a bunch of veggies in with an egg, like, and that will fill me up. Half your plate from vegetables, a whole cup of veggies are like 25 calories. A whole cup of, say, mashed potatoes is closer to like 80 to 150. So just in balancing that out of, like, volume and also just nutrient density and, like, what's it's doing for your body, I almost always say, if you can at least fill it up, and it doesn't matter what all the kids have, even if there's far less than that. If we have taco day, mine's a huge taco salad. Right? They might have different things, but I'm going to make half my plate from vegetables. So that's always my first go-to. And then, like, what keeps that interesting for me? So maybe it's roasted ones. Maybe it's salads from a bag. Maybe it's dips that I can use with vegetables. And because they're crunchy at night, I like that, and it keeps me away from the Doritos. Like, you know, like, what is it that is going to connect with you? But doing that, and, like, lunch, we're really bad about it sometimes because we end up with leftovers or grabbing stuff. So thinking through for you, how do I fill my plate up? with those vegetables and always have them available. And it can be canned or frozen or other options. Like it's not always. I just tend to like fresher ones when I get it, but I'm not always at the grocery store. I mean, thank God for Instacart, but get it delivered. I don't know. Yeah.
I was thinking about a lot of this is prep, and of course prep takes time. And I've noticed lately, like if I chop up, green peppers, red peppers, and whatever, and put them in the fridge, they're not lasting so long. And then I'm like, okay, I did all this prep, and oh yuck, you know what I mean? Is that just what's happening in our produce departments now, or that things just don't last?
I mean, so roasted vegetables are one that I really like because they'll stay a little longer if I cook them that way. Another trick of the trade sometimes is using apple cider vinegar as a way of both cleaning your vegetables, but also like you dilute it down and do like a vegetable wash with it, and it actually helps it last longer. Food waste is a big one that, it's frustrating and it's costly, and so it's also like really keying into the amount that you actually are going to use, and you're going to miss that mark from time to time. But looking through what you can do early on. So if I'm going to prep for the week, most of those fresh vegetables are not going to last for a week when they're cut up, right? So I could prep for the week with things like a vegetable soup, or which is also really nice to add in, or a roasted vegetables, or even having like bag salad that I like spread out throughout the week. That'll stay. Once you start cutting up veggies, carrot, celery, that kind of stuff will pretty much stay for a week. But you have to kind of tailor. So some you might have like 2-3 days with it, and then it's being aware of like, I'm going to use this for this, which does take like a minute to get in front of. So it's thinking through that. The other thing is there are a lot of like convenient pre-done things. It's just they usually cost more. So you can work through, all right, if I'm going to work on having, say, a vegetable platter that I could pick at all day long, then put some things on it